your startup scales, are you worried that your tech infrastructure will come crumbling down? With new investors and more clients, there is the added pressure of rapidly scaling and growing tech teams to meet deadlines. Yet, if it's not done the right way, it could cost you more than just a few sleepless nights. You might have many questions, including hiring in house, understanding how much of the current architecture needs to be redesigned, technical debt, and even how to deal with the breakdown of communication as the team grows. To help you answer these questions, in this episode, I'm talking to the amazing Varun Aggarwal, a serial CTO and tech entrepreneur with over 19 years' experience in the industry. As the founder and CEO of Know Your Dosh, Varun brings his expertise and vision to making household finances easy and worry-free. Find out more in this episode. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Naily Makangu from Athena Leaders. As a tech consultant and startup advisor, I will answer live the burning question that you have on your journey to Series A+. Subscribe and tune in every week for top tips to meet amazing guests, startup founders, investors, and more. More importantly, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Varun, welcome to the show.
Hi,
I'm
Naily.
really excited to find out more about you and what you do. And, we've crossed paths on so many different platforms. And yes, I just love the technical expertise and actually the expertise in startups in general that you bring. And I'm sure that there are many people out there who also want to find out about you. But to start, can you tell us a little bit more about Know Your Dosh?
Yes. So Know Your Dosh is like we are trying to help families to simplify their financial management. So, like in majority of the households, there's only one person who manages all the financial stuff, like mortgages, insurances, and utilities. Now, what if something happens to that person, right? How will the family members will get access to that information? So using our platform, you can upload all this your financial related information, and then you can decide whom you want to share it with. So that's the crux of our platform. Our platform also tells you, like whether we can save you money on your mortgages, insurances, and utilities as well. So that's pretty much it. And we are quite at an early stage as well. So we're like growing quite consistently.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, for me, I'm really interested in what you're actually building. And as you've said, in so many households, there's sometimes, there's one person who takes the financial responsibility, or sometimes we forget how many platforms where information goes, where your pension is stored. That's a good question for myself, and all of those kind of things. And another thing that I've been thinking lately, as I work a lot more with startups, I'm getting shares here and there. What would happen to all of that knowledge, if I pass away? Because there's no one place to put it. Is there anything? For me, what is interesting is, what was your motivation for creating Know Your Dosh?
Yes, so I lost my dad when I was 14 years old, and my elder brother, my younger sister, we were still very young, right? My mom had absolutely no idea where the financial things were, like which all bank accounts, and we struggled for months then to get pieces together. And even after like few years down the line, like we'll receive a dividend check from a company, then we'll come to know, oh, my dad actually bought some shares from that company as well, because there was no digitization at that stage at that time. So that was the one main motivator. And then another thing happened in London. I lost a very close friend of mine one evening, just playing badminton one evening, and we just lost him. And we had absolutely again no idea, like which bank he dealt with, which credit cards he had, like which all utilities he dealt with. So and I've been in like a hardcore techie for more than 20 years experience, and I've been like always interested in financial world. So I thought, like, let me combine both of these things and create a platform, because I could see that like people were still struggling with these kind of things. COVID has been a classic example where has shown us that life is very unpredictable, right? We normally think that like we are for eternal, but that's not the reality until it hits us. So, and that's what I said, okay, like let me just work on it and and see. And we did the market research, and we found actually more than 95% households like actually have got this problem. So there's a big mass market gap, and across the globe, not just in a particular country, across the globe, this is a problem. And that's when I thought, okay, like let's fix this problem.
I agree, especially when you say it's across the globe, because this as my dad is getting older, and this is something that we always have a discussion with him
Yes.
about. Yet at the same time, it's not the most pleasant discussions to have, to
No,
be honest.
absolutely.
And I find that talking about what you're gonna what happen if something happens to you, and again, even for us that says younger people, it's exactly the same thing, but we don't approach this type of conversation. And the other use case, when as I was listening to you, it could be that it's not just death that could be the problem. It could just be that someone is in a coma for an extended period of
Yes,
time,
yes,
and that's
yes.
another thing that can happen without us planning. But of course, we don't think about all of those things. So I'm just gonna use this episode as a hint to my dad. I'm like, by the way, Dad, there is a platform that you can go and use. We don't need to know anything. I just want to know
Yes,
that
so
if something
that's
happens
the
to you.
that's very important point you raised, right? And we have
Mm.
actually thought about that yes, parents might not want to share at this stage while they are alive.
Yeah.
So we built a platform that they can add everything and they can give you the authorization, which means you cannot view their portfolio till something happens, right? So
Mhm.
when there's a time, then you come back to us either with the authorization code and the documents, and then we only enable access to them. So there is a security in your mind, in their mind, that yes, like after them, there is someone who can have access to all the financial related information without giving them the full access right now.
Yes, and without writing that in a piece of paper that someone might lose one day and be
Yes,
back to square one.
yes, true. It's very
Yeah.
true because everything is digitized these days. There's no paper trails as well, and then it's not secure
Mm.
as well. So it becomes quite difficult to track on a paper basis. And that's why,
Mm.
like they're using a digital world, we thought that like let's create a digital platform which makes it easy for people to manage as well. And because, like people spend a lot of time managing their financial stuff as well, renewals, contracts, mortgages. So
Mhm.
it's like, why
Yeah.
not like simplify that bit as well?
Yeah. So in essence, although even though that you're still helping with this idea of what happened in terms of a crisis or a difficult situation, there's also the ongoing support that families can get as well in terms of managing
Yes.
their finances, which I guess, especially right now, being on top of your finances without, especially for those who might not understand that, is very needed.
Yes, that's right. So, I think there was some research done in UK itself. I think more than 50% of households doesn't have any wills. And if you don't have a will, it takes around 18 to 24 months for probate service to get your financial stuff in order, which is a
Mhm.
big pain because while the family is grieving, they have to deal with this pain as well without having access to all these financial assets or resources. And using a platform, at least you know where the things are. And we also prompt the users to go for like create a will, basic will, so that at least they are not left out of the pocket.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot more extensive than I thought. And yeah, so I want to find out a little bit more where you are, at least at what stage, because you mentioned that Know Your Dosh is at the early stage. But there's one more point that I would like to make about your own personal journey with finance, because you said that you've always loved finance. And I read somewhere that when you you were 13 years old, you used to maintain a ledger for your own pocket
Yes.
money and expense. Do you still do that? Maybe digitalized, or do you still have your own paper ledger?
No, yes, that's true. So I think I was 13 or 14, somewhere in that range. Like I used to maintain my ledger every day, my pocket money, my spending, if I'm buying a chocolate, toffee, or if I'm getting pocket, like everything, like I used to track. And the interesting bit was that after every year, I used to do analysis as well. In which month, what was the highest and lowest amount, and which month was the highest, which month was the lowest as well. I don't know what prompted me, like where that thought came from, but yeah, I still have got that leisure with me right now. So I did that
Wow.
for good 6, 7, 8 years, and I don't know then why I stopped. And but now as well, for past like a long time, I've been doing in a digitized way. I keep record of all
Mhm.
the things because yes, like yeah, you do have like your like coming back originally from India. I've got some assets in India as well, so bank
Mhm.
accounts so it's easy to track in a single place so that you know where you stand. And the other thing which helps me is to manage my day-to-day, like monthly financials as well. Because yes, like as you know, like being a founder, like I'm not drawing any salary, which means like people say, oh, how are you managing them? Because I've got the full view of my financial world, so I know where I stand, how much I can afford, like how I can manage, and that is why it has kept me going as well. So which is a very important aspect as well, which we want to impart education to the users as well, like how important and how what benefit it brings through Know Your Dosh.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you started so young. When I first started doing anything ledger, like I was already in my 20s, and my family thought I was a penny pincher. I'm like, well, I just want to know where it goes,
Yeah.
and it actually serves as well as entrepreneurs because it's like you mentioned, it's great to know where you are. So now, when you look at Know Your Dosh, at which stage are you now? Because I know that you are planning a launch, at least of the first version of the platform. Is that correct?
Yes, so we have already gone live around, I think, a month back. Like we
Mhm.
did a public launch of our platform,
Yeah.
and yeah, we have been like since then we have been doing marketing as well, and
Mhm.
from it's been scaling pretty well. And even though we are not spending on infrastructure like anything because we are using
Mhm.
AWS credits, and the way because using my tech background, we have configured and built a platform in such a way that is highly optimized.
Mm.
So like yeah, we are keeping our burn rate quite low because of that.
Ah, that's brilliant. Of course, without talking too much specifics in terms of your own internal stack, is there any tips that you can share with, especially non-technical founders, when they start thinking about building their platform, and the first thing they should look at before they go in heavy on development?
Uh, I think the one of a few things which I've definitely come across speaking to many non-technical founders is that um, the assumption that built if a tech has been already built, it's easy to replicate. Which is not the case because sometimes, yes, there might be ready-made solutions, but still it takes time to implement in a proper way. And sometimes people go extra, over-engineer as well, which is not required. So I would say that focus on MVP, right? Like what is the bare minimum you need? Get that up and running. And once you start seeing some traction, because yes, in the very early stages, like the cash is always on you're always struggling for cash, right? And to get a good developer, you will never be able to afford them. So it becomes a more of a chicken egg situation. Like you want to build a world class product as well, but you don't have the money as well to fund that. So it's like a very tricky situation. So you start like slow, for like you build a small thing, you show the traction to your investors or potential customers, and use that to keep building slowly and slowly. And once you've got a say initial first round, and then you need to speak to or maybe a technical guy. Again, I am referring to a technical guy because many people think that right from the beginning they need a CTO, which is not the case because it's like the CTO is a very broad role, right? So CTO, like normally when they come in, like they think of the managing part, but in the initial time, initial early stages, you need more of a like a execution hands-on, who might be doing development as well, infrastructure management as well, setting up the environments, like testing as well. So a lot of things he has to do. So he has to be really hands-on. So that's why I'm calling technical guy, who can lead to become a CTO as well later on, right? Which is perfectly right, which just happens most of the time, right? But get a good technical guy who understand how startup works, because it's important. There are certain things, the way startup works is um, things can be dynamic, right? You always lack on resources. So, like when you're working with big companies, if we need a something tool, you just raise a request and you get the tool, right? So you don't have to think about it, the cost and everything like that.
Mhm.
But when you're working for a startup, yes, those things are not available. So you have to still manage with the available resources.
Mhm.
So it is important that you have an open discussion, and like it's very important to have a transparency that what your expectation is. So what you're trying to build, like, and in what timeline and what is achievable, and be open to their suggestion as well, that what is technically possible and what is not. So if you keep these things in mind, that yes, you'll have like a good start in the beginning. Regarding the architecture or like which platforms to build upon, to be honest, there is no one sure short way or one solution to all the problems or all the queries. And things can change as well, right? Like there have come across so many companies who have completely redone their like infrastructure complete from scratch many times over their journey. It's just that technology evolves, right? Every time, like we see that technology is constantly evolving, you have to keep upgrading yourself as well, and you need to keep upgrading your infrastructure as well. So start slow, like keeping your burn rate low, and like they focus on the product, right? Like what you want to build, and with the bare minimum features, if you focus on that, that will give you a very good start.
Yeah, and the definitely. I mean, there's so many things that you've mentioned there that is super important for our listeners. In terms of the start slow, keep the
Yes.
scope small, make sure that the requirements and what you need is very clear, because it's another area that I've seen as well that can be a lot be difficult. And the distinction of who is a CTO, because that's another concept that a lot of people talk about, and it's very difficult to understand who do we have. And one thing I also love to mention when you talk about the thing you mentioned about if something is already exists out there, it's not
Mhm.
necessarily easy to replicate, because I find that quite a lot. I was working with a
Mhm.
client and we needed to build a platform that will help with recruitment. Now, is one of the things people think, yeah, but how hard is a recruitment platform can be, in addition to our own secret sauce, which is the part that we are more interested about. I'm like, yeah, but what do you mean by recruitment platforms? Even if we're going to have a dashboard of recruitment metrics, it's like, yeah, but there's
Exactly.
20, 30 metrics that we want. I'm like, fine. How much do you want to the platform, the MVP? I want 30. I'm like, I can give you 10. And then of the 10, we shall the three that we are actually going to go deep into. And that's the one that we will base our research on. And I think, it was a bit tough for my client, who's a non-tech founder. But what I loved was his realization. Later on when we brought the tech team and starting looking at how much would it cost to do this and that. And it's like, well, this is how much time we need for 10 metrics. I'm like, do you
Yes.
want to go down to 7? Because people think about beautiful dashboard, we're so used to seeing things that look glossy and
Yes.
exciting, but when you start asking someone, just sit next to me, and for every single dashboard we're going to spend at least 2 hours to explain exactly how we want us to see it, which format, how it's going to work with AI, with analytics, and all of those kind of things. That's when people realize that, wow, what you see on the screen, the amount of work that goes in the background, and the amount of
Yes.
number of people that get
Yes.
involved.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And to get a one platform up and running, like you like in the people don't realize that amount of different skill set that is required to get it up and running.
Mhm.
You need a
Yeah.
developer, you need a QA, you need a product person, you need an infrastructure guy, you need a security guy, right? So there are so many different like roles are there, which is like needs to be fulfilled by a single person in the beginning, right? So you need to be
Mhm.
very realistic that what is achievable in the time frame you have got, and like
Yeah.
and what it will lead you to the next stage. So, like focus on the next stage. What will get you to the next stage, which is a very important thing. So once you focus on that, then you will be able to set your realistic expectations as well.
Yeah. And I guess from your own personal journey, because obviously you starting building your platform as a technical person, of course you do
Yes.
work with other people as well. But did you feel like starting a startup as a technical person was much easier, or is it just easier on one area, but the challenge of even the validation of the product is still very real?
You raised a very important, like a very good question. So when I started, like I initially thought, let me get the UI designs, like the how the screen's gonna look like, how the designs, and then I'm
Mhm.
gonna get someone on board and to get the development done. Because even though I'm a technical person, I can do all the development myself. But I thought that if I get involved in the development myself, then the other is of the business is gonna get affected. And I think I wasted 3 months with zero progress, like because there were so many things I couldn't like come up with any designs because that was not my area, that was not my niche area.
Mm.
And then I thought, okay, let me do the reverse. Let me build the platform engine first. And once I've got something in front of me, then I can actually think about like how I want it to look like, right? Or I can show it to someone, okay, like this is what it is. Like, okay, can you make it much more better? And that's what I did then. So I started building the engine.
Mm.
So most of the platform I did it myself, because there were quite a few things which because the way our platform works is that like there's a lot of personal financial information, right? So there were
Mm-hmm.
two aspects which we never wanted to compromise on. One was the security and privacy.
Yeah.
So for
Mm.
security, it has to be multi-level encryption so that nobody can have access to the customer's data. Even as a company, we can't access users' data. They have to authorize us to look into their data as well. Privacy, that
Mm.
is users' data. It shouldn't leave our systems, like within our infrastructure. It shouldn't go out. Like we are not selling our customers' data to
Mm.
anybody else, and that was the reason we encrypted it, and we built that in a DNA of our system, right? This is one of the
Mm.
mistakes people do sometimes when these kind of systems is that they think security afterwards. But what happens
Right.
afterwards is it becomes much more difficult and costly as well to implement retrospectively, right? So, and that's why like it took us a long time to get that architecture in place so that it's built into the DNA. So any new thing which gets built, it inherits that security like features automatically. So like the new developer doesn't have
Mhm.
to think much about that. Privacy
Yeah.
again, we built in such a way that
Mhm.
it's highly like blocked, like nobody can access, the data cannot go out, and that's what we thought about that. So yes, being technically, I was able to build the product, but then
Mhm.
yes, marketing, I struggled. So like most of the non-technical founders, they are good at marketing, at selling, and I struggled massively over
Yes.
there. Like I had a big issue, like where people were saying that were like, it's been long, you need to come out, you need to come out. I was like, I can, but I don't know how, where, and how to do.
Mhm.
And then I was looking for to some extent, I was looking for a marketing co-founder as well at one point. And then like eventually things started moving, and then I found a marketing person. And then yes, like since then things has been pretty well. So like he's taking over the marketing, he's doing all
Mhm.
the campaigns and running off, coming up with a lot of great ideas as well. But yeah, so I would say it wasn't easy. So even being a technical person, yes, it did help me
Mm.
to like lower my cost for sure. That I've not spent anything on my tech platform development.
Mhm.
I did most of them myself. Now I've got like a few developers on board as well, but initial like the most of the development was done myself. So it does helps like to build up the product, but again, you can build an amazing product, but there's no use if you can't sell it, right? You still need that
Yeah.
to go out to be able to sell it out, right? So that's why the challenge was same. Like when I come across like non-technical founders, I say that like both of them has got their own pros and cons and own struggles, right? Their benefits and struggles.
Yeah, definitely. And as well as if your own strength can also become a weakness because that's the area you end up
Yes,
spending more time in,
true.
forgetting the other part that is not particularly sexy and interesting. And I can
Yes,
definitely relate on the marketing aspect is honestly, it's I used to say that marketing and sales were the worst thing that people ever imagined. I'm a logical person. I come from a software engineering background. I can do leadership and management, all of that, people, great. But when it comes to marketing and sales, it's like black heart, like black magic.
yes.
Which is no, I mean, there are some rules to it. And now that I've been doing it for a while, I appreciate that more. And I do have a lot of respect for it because it's not as obvious. But I guess, people on the other side say that about the things that we do as well. So,
Yes, I
yeah.
agree. Like when I speak to non-technical founders, like I do offer, free calls, wherever
Mm,
I've been part of like startup accelerators or like programs, I've always offered, like guys, like if you need me to review your platform or if you need any help, feel free to pop me a message. I'm happy to review for you. And
mm,
when I going through the things that I find that even the most basic things has been missed, like, and then obviously it's
mhm.
not their fault because they are not aware of those things,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's where, what it seems very basic to me, it's like a completely unknown or a black hole, like as you said, like for them.
Mm.
And similarly, when I'm talking about marketing, that it's the same way that like what it feels like very big thing, it's a very basic thing for them. So I think it's all depends on the what skill set you've got and how you complement.
Yes. And talking about the thing that you look at when you start going under the hood of other people's platform, this is another concerns that many founders have, whether technical or non-technical, especially non-technical. But what happens usually when a startup just raised a round of funding, whether it's a seed round or going to Series A or even Series A going forward, you do have a higher sense of urgency because you have even more eyes on what you're doing.
Yes.
company is growing very quickly, and then there is this feeling that I have no idea what is under the hood, and we're not really sure how to start evaluating that. So I don't know if
Yes.
you've seen that before, and kind of what advice do you have for people who are in that stage, really worried about what they have and how much they, not even knowing, what to do for reworking the platform.
Yes. So I think like that's very important for the tech platform to scale. Like it's very important to understand how your platform works, right? So I'm not talking about at a code level. What I'm talking about, like, okay, like what's your resource consumption is, like how many servers you have got, how the servers are being used as well, right? So it's very important for analytics, right? You need to have a proper tools, and these days there are a lot of free tools available you can use, implement, which gives you a lot of insights about your platform, how, what kind of traffic you're getting, like how many requests you're getting, and like how your servers are doing, whether you need to upgrade those servers as well or not, whether your logs, like if there's like a lot of errors are happening in your platform, because that is affecting your user journey as well then, right? So the analytics and logs, like it's very important, and I wouldn't say that it needs to start at seed. It needs to start right from the beginning, because it helps
Right.
you in check, right? The moment, right from the beginning, you need to know that, like, I come across a lot of founders that where they have had a beefy servers, very big servers, and then when I looked at their profiles, they were used like 0.1%. So I was like, why are you having this big servers? Oh no, we are expecting a load, we are going to run a campaign. I was like, okay, but have you had anything till now, and when is that planned? Oh
Mhm.
no, we haven't had that. So they are they're paying like massive amounts for nothing, in hoping that yes, the platform will get a load, and then they will don't want to afford like that, losing those customers. The problem is, like, once you built it, you need to do a performance testing, just to have like more users and see that, okay, like if there was a 5 users or like say 50 users, what was the like average look like? And once you got so
Mhm.
200 users, what's average look like now, right? If it hasn't changed much,
Yeah.
you don't need to worry at this stage. You need to keep an eye on that. You need to put a thresholds and alerts that yes, like if it goes up certain threshold, it alerts you, so that you can either upgrade the server or have more servers built in, right? So this is a very common problem. Like a lot of founders I see doing it as well. That like as a non-technical founders, you care about customer journey, right? You care about performance. That it has to be ultra fast. It has to be like Facebook. It has to be like Instagram. It has to be like Google. Ultimate, right? Those
Mhm.
companies were not. Those platforms were not built in a day, right? And there are massively, like a really super techie people who are behind those platforms. So you need to have a realistic expectation. It might not be that fast. You need to understand that it has to be sufficient enough that user is feels okay, because you're still a startup, right? You're not an established brand yet. So this is a very key point. So having those analysis will keep you in check as well. Okay, like what was the response time before and over the time, whether it's growing or not. If it is growing that way, then you need to start asking your tech guy, where is the problem? Is it the infrastructure or is it the code, right? Because over the time,
Yeah.
as the code gets complex, it starts to slow down, and that's where the
Mhm.
response time increases. So that is where these analytics, these logs, analysis helps to understand what's happening in your code base. Like how your infrastructure is getting used, right? So whether you need to scale vertically or horizontally, so it all depends, like where you need to focus on, and that has to also become part of your tech debt. We talk about technical debt, right?
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
Non-technical founders mainly worried about features. I want to build more features, new
Yeah.
features, right? And they
Yeah.
don't understand where, yeah, there is a technical debt which has to happen, right? Ultimately, you can build more features, but if your platform cannot handle it, it's not going to scale. It's not going to scale. So you need to allocate at least 20 to 25%, I would say 20 to 30% of your allocation to your technical debt on a regular basis, because it's a tech platform. It has to constantly improve, evolve, constantly change as well. Even though, like you fix something, you deploy, you build something, say 6 months, 1 years down the line, and now that your technical guy says that, like we need to rewrite the whole thing and it will take X amount of time, you should be happy
Yeah.
about it that he has identified the problem. Otherwise, you
Yes.
might be in a situation that when your system is crashing, then you start losing your customers. Then you will not have enough
Mhm.
time to fix that thing. So it's very important to keep an eye and listen to your tech guy when he says that, yeah, there are a few important bits. Even though you have to stop new feature development, do it, because those things are important, right? But yes, it has to be backed by the proper data. today I'm a data focused guy. I look at the data, all sorts of data, whether it's like and I use all sorts of free tools out there to get all
Mhm.
sorts of data, whether it's a customer data or it's a consumption data or under the hood, over the hood, everywhere. And then you need to play around and see that like what data you're interested in at this stage, and what different stages will look into different data as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's where
Mhm.
it's very important to have a proper analytical tools like implemented. You don't need to build it yourself. There are plenty of them, like one click, without writing any code, you can implement those tools. And then yeah, like you start getting like massive amount of data which can help you to further build your platform.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I mean, that was wow, so many great things that you've shared into just these few minutes, and I'll make sure to have on the show note and also on our website. I'll make sure to speak to Varun separately, anyone listening right now, so that we can get all some of those tools just to help you get started. And if you are interested to find out a little bit more about technical debt and how to deal with that, and yes, I did another episode on my podcast. Go and find out, as I talked about the different types of technical debt and how to approach that. We've already talked about quite a couple of types of technical debt, from the infrastructure, the servers, and also code base. But there's also can touch many different areas that needs to be to looked after. And as Aaron said, you need to allocate 20 to 30% into technical debt. I think this is one of the things that I struggle with in my role when working with startups, or even before with other large companies, is getting the executive team to understand the importance of allocating that 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 pot into
Yes.
to be fixed. Because most people think that, well, we are scaling, right? We are scaling, we've got more clients, and there's a lot of great things happening. We want more features, as you've mentioned, Varun. But again, you want the features, but another thing is, the more technical debt you have, the slower you will going to
Yes.
start building. And as another data point, if you keep records on how much time development takes, obviously if you have doing agile, there are many tools that can help you with that. That is also another data point that can help you to understand the urgency of tackling the technical debt. Yeah.
Yes, I think like as a non-technical founder, you have absolutely every right to ask your technical guy or a CTO that like why we do need that, right? Like so there have been times where technical people like they've just come out of like gut feeling. It's not no
Yeah.
like they need to back it up with the data that yes like so
Mhm.
this is what it is was like previously with X amount of users. Now we are preparing
Mhm.
for Y amount of users. We think we need to do this thing because of otherwise it will not be able to sustain, or we our
Yeah.
platform will not be able to handle it. So that's why it's very important that data will help you to make those decisions as well, that yes. And then obviously because that will also help you to cost as well, like a costing, that okay, like if we had a one server, two servers, now we need five servers, how much is going to end up costing me? So then you need to allocate budget for that as well. So all these things like matters, like, and makes a massive difference when you're scaling up like from like say 1,000, 10,000 users to like how hundreds of thousands of users.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's brilliant. As you said, as a CTO, whether you don't have a CTO in house, or you are the person looking at the technical thing, or as a founder, it's actually a good way of asking those questions and coaching your technical person to help you understand what needs to be changed and why. Because at the end of the day, whoever will speak to will report to investors will have to have that discussion. One thing I see
Yes,
a lot is people who start with a no-code solution, and of course the development is much faster. They are scaling, they start seeing issues, the platform goes like, no, this is it, I'm on my last leg. And
yes,
at that point they start the conversation of, we need to rebuild, and see the massive cost that will be to bring
yes,
engineers. Whereas if that was a discussion from the beginning, which I always encourage my clients to do, you need to have those discussions. People need to be aware that no code can also be a way of, actually a very good way, in fact, to start a platform. But
yes.
if the intention is to switch, you also need to take that into account in your pool of technical debt.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, like I love like no code platforms. Like I started my
Mhm.
initial first like a couple of things I built. It was actually on a no code platform just to test it out, just to say, like I spread it, sent it on my investment groups, and I asked them, what do you guys think about it? and they use it. I was like, that looks good. And then when the scope expanded, then I thought, okay, like the no-code platform is might not be sufficient because it won't be able to sustain the kind of load or the kind of things I'm trying to build. So that's when I thought, okay, like, I need to go a legacy way, but using a different technology. So yeah, like no code platforms are good to start with, but like be aware that there are limitations, right? So it might work right now, it might work for another 6 months, 1 year, but it has still got limitations. And again, it depends what you're building. If it is a very simple static website, then you might be okay with like thousands and hundreds of millions of users as well. But if you're doing a complex page where a lot of processing needs to happen, it might not. So be aware of that and just be, like, yeah, that's what I would say, like, be aware of that.
Yeah. Again, for our listeners, do remember that we do run discussions once a month, free discussion on tech and product. So if any of the things that we said today it sounded like a foreign language, or you have a few questions and you would like to join, yes, do find us. We have the link on the show note of this episode, and also on our website. Drop in, it's free, no commitment, and we're more than happy to help and to talk about your particular problems. As we've known in the tech world, although the pizza sauce is the same, it's really the toppings that make the difference when it comes to different startups and the needs that you have. And of course, if you would like to see Varun in one of the sessions, then do put a comment. I'm sure that I will just bribe him with, I will try to figure out, maybe a new ledger for him or something finance like that will get him to join our sessions as well. Now, one area that just very quickly, just as a reminder again, Varun is the CEO and the founder of Know Your Dosh, a platform that is amazing to help you really take the burden when it comes to for family financials. So if you do not want your family and anybody else to know exactly what state your finances are, bank account, investment, shares, rents, properties, yes, you can still have a platform where all of this data is stored. You have people there who has access to the platform. They won't see anything until there's a trigger, whether it's are you in a coma or you're dead. Sadly, it will happen to us eventually. But at least it's better to know that when it happens to us, our family will have access to what they need to support you or to support themselves without a lot of worries. So I'm personally looking into that platform myself as I'm getting older. So this is something I need to put in place for myself as well. Now, one thing I love again, Varun, about your experience is that you're also an investor, and now you are on the other side as you are going out and looking for investments. Do you want to share a bit your journey being on the other side of the startup ecosystem?
Yes. So my angel investing journey started around 6, 7 years back, I think. So I've been an angel investor since then. I've got a portfolio of around 12 to 14 companies like I invested over time. And so yeah, so it's been quite interesting journey so far. And now I've learned a lot as well about like cap table, investment, dilution, like different ways of funding, like a seed note, seed fast, convertible notes, what are those terminologies mean. So it has made a massively difference when I come to other side. So I've got like much more options available that, like I know, like if I come across an investor, like to make it more beneficial for him, because if they see the benefit, they will be more willing to invest in your startup as well. So I like when I speak to an investor, I talk about, like, okay, what's your motivation? Like, what's your personal circumstances is, right? So then I tell about, okay, like in what ways, like there are opportunities available to invest or like to go about it so that they maximize their returns. But yes, like coming from the other side, it did help me that because I knew that what normally investors look for, what kind of like numbers they look for, what they're looking for in and like when they are looking at investment proposals. So it definitely made a difference. And then when I'm speaking as well, like I knew exactly about the dilution, about like option pools or like yeah, advisor equity, like how does those works, like cliff period, like or what do you call like vesting schedules. So all those things, like I was aware of those terminologies, which like most of the founders like are not aware, which like is perfectly fine. And it's about like, Seed Leakers is a good platform to know about, like they write pretty good blogs to learn about all these things as well. So there has been times where I've been like option schemes, like there are different types of option schemes as well, right? So yeah, like I would say like it did help me massively, when I was speaking to investors from the other side, because I knew what they will be looking for, what questions, so I had covered those bases as well. That like, it wasn't that like I will not have an answer. So like thankfully, like so far, like I've been in a position where they have asked a question, I've always covered it.
In based on your investor experience, is there any kind of, I would say, your top tech questions, or that look at the tech stack when you're evaluating a startup to invest in, the thing that you see a lot that might get you to walk away from an investment?
um as I said, like tech in a startup is an evolving thing. uh there is what you see right now might not exist in next 6 months, right? It might be a completely different thing, different platform, different technology itself. So instead of focusing on the technology, what I focus on in the thought process, what your vision is. Are you aware of the limitations as well about the platform? Say, as I mentioned, like earlier, that if you're using a no-code platform, okay, to what stage it will get you to? How many customers you will be able to do, and what's your then future plan? What do you want to do with that, right? Because if you're trying to bring them in-house or outsource or redo the whole platform, there's a cost. There's a massive cost. Now, whether you'll have enough funds to fund that, if not, then there's a big risk, big red flag over there, right? And if you've shown me that yes, like you've got access to good developers as well at a reasonable price who are ready to join your journey or your mission as well, good enough. That's pretty good. And the other thing which I found, like most of the people these days, especially non-technical founders, some of the technical people as well, get stuck on terminologies, like the buzzwords. So they hear a buzzword
Yeah.
in the news and they say, oh, I want to implement this thing. I want to do this thing without understanding anything about what that does even mean, right? So that really, really puts me off. Like so many startups, when they come to me, they say, oh, we are AI driven. I was like, okay,
What does it mean?
so you don't even have 100 users and you are AI driven. Okay, that's great. So tell me, like, how come you are AI driven? So there is a misconception between AI driven and algorithmic driven. So, like it might still behave like AI, that it is giving you a smart answers or replies, or it's doing some smart things into the system. But those are algorithmic driven. Those are not AI driven, right? So when we talk about a pure AI driven, ChatGPT is a classic example. That's a pure AI driven. It takes massive amount of data to train your models as well. Like for to
Yeah.
be able to truly AI driven. So this is one of the things I would really request, and say that don't fall for buzzwords. If there is no use
Yeah.
case for particular technology in your startup, don't use it, right?
Yes.
I've come across people, they've said, oh, like you're building right nice thing, are you using blockchain? I was like, but there's no use case. Oh no, you should use blockchain. I was like, but why?
Why?
Right. Right. So you have to justify the use of that particular technology, a valid use case for your technology. Yes, tomorrow, maybe, as I said, in 1 year's time, if I feel that there's a valid use case of a blockchain in my platform, yes, I will move to that. But like currently, it doesn't warrant any use case that, to use a blockchain in my platform right now. And there has been so many other technologies as well. People have said, okay, like, why do you use this? Why not that? I was like, yeah, there is no use case. I want to keep it simple. So there's a very simple, like this acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I always look at that and follow that. Like literally keep it simple. If you keep your platform simple, it will be easy to modify, easy to scale later on. If you make it complex right now, any changes you will do, you will be inviting for more
Yeah.
trouble, more time, more money you will be spending. And then you'll be leading to a lot of frustration as well, which will literally drive you mad. So it's very important,
Yeah.
like keep your platform as simple as possible. Don't go into the buzzwords or like focus on over engineering. Like ask for what it needs to deliver at this stage. Yes, you need to focus. You need to think about the future vision as well. But if you've got the right people on team as well, that's very important. That if they can think about, yes. To give an example, that if I'm building a feature that I know it takes say 4 days, right? But I know
Yeah.
this feature is going to be extended to incorporate few more things, maybe 1 month or 2 months or 6 months down the line, right? But to enable that, I need to modify the architecture in such a way that it will take me now 6 days, right? I rather do that right now because, like, yes, it will take me long time to deliver that one feature, but it will enable me to develop future features much more quickly. So, but that is something your technical person or your CTO need to have a vision that, like how it looks like. Like in our case, right? Multi-currency. We have already built that. Multilingual as well. Like I can enable any language on my platform within or like less than like 2-3 days. So we have thought about that. We have incorporated those, built our architecture in such a way that those things are already built in. And there are many security aspects as well in the way we manage our platform, the subscription model we're going to bring in, right? So all those things we have thought in such a way that, yes, it has taken a long time to build and get those things in place. But I know now once I need to incorporate or build those things, it's going to be super easy for me. Our platform is API driven, which means, yes, like I haven't built my mobile apps. Why? Because mobile app is just a front end. It's just like like the front end to interact with the
Yeah.
platform.
Mhm.
Now, if our whole platform is API driven, getting the mobile apps built and running is not going to take me more than a month or a two. Why? Because the whole platform is already being tested on a web platform, right? It's all API driven. So those are the small things which makes a massive difference in terms of how you deliver, how you progress, and how you scale it up as well. So those things.
Yes, and thanks for that. Honestly, I'm just gonna cut this section, and everybody, someone comes to me with a buzzword, I just send it to them and says, rather than focusing on the AI, the blockchain, and all of those buzzwords, here are the things that you should really sit down
Yes.
and ask. And in fact, you remind me of a time when I was working in London, and the reason why they hired me was because they had a lot of issues with delivering projects in general in the company. There was a big rebranding going. There were so many projects running, and they didn't really understand this idea of how do we report what's going on to management. So I went
Mhm.
there from an operations perspective to kind of look at what is that we're doing, how we're communicating, how can you simplify that. And first of all, I found that they had about 20 odd projects running for a team of 50 people, which I thought this is insane. So what did we need to stop? But what's very interesting, and my role got completely changed from just looking at the project, the governance and operation to the head of product, was because they decided they were launching 5 different products at the same time in September. We were already about June, July at that point. And when I sat there, and honestly, I don't have a really good poker face. So when they says we're launching 5 products in 2 months, and I thought, you're so rebranding a company, great. And again, you love that. They only had one development team. So if you think about the agile in the sprints, each sprint had to have a bit of other products. So that was a complete, a bit of a mess that I need to sort out.
Yes.
But some of it is education, which I did with the executive team on how development work. But the most interesting thing was one project was meant to introduce AI. Again, they've already signed up and they ran a pilot on that, which they paid some money to do that. And the second part of the pilot will cost them about £50,000 to run a
Mhm.
pilot. Now, the exciting part was to run that pilot, you need to have a lot of data. And
Mhm.
by the time you sign the contract with the external company, you start paying the license fee, the 50K plus
Yes.
the license fee, regardless or not you have data to
Data
send.
or not.
And a lot
Yes.
of people forget that tiny blueprint, which I think is the most important one. Now, speaking to my team, I asked them, how do we get the data? And it says, well, the only way you can get the data is by first launching this platform, then amassing the data on that platform, then we can
Exactly.
export it.
Yes.
How the hell are you? And my head, I just went back to the executive team and says, we need to kill this. Or,
Yes.
you speak to the vendors, find a way to postpone it for at least a year. And I know you've already sold it to other customers and investors, but you will pay over 50K because that's the initial pilot and
Initially.
setup. But then
Yes.
the added cost of running it, and then the added cost of servers, it's just because it was AI, and that's how it got sold to the company, and that was it. And I thought,
Yes. No, I
when you were
absolutely,
talking
I
about
agree. I agree. So I think like over there, like I would like to add 2 points. Like one is when you scaling up, it's very important because when you start hiring developers and you're building your tech team as well, They come from a different background, right? So everyone has got their own mindset, like thought process as well. But once you have established what is working, the documentation is very important as well, which we tend to forget in the early startups, right? It helps to get new people on board and follow the processes which is working for you. I will not say pick up a like process document from the web, because yes, those are generic documents. Do what is working for you and replicate that. So what it means is your team knows exactly what processes has to be followed, and when anybody joins new, they also know as well. So if somebody leaves as well, so then you're not massively left with a knowledge gap. You have still got that knowledge with you. So that's a very important aspect as well. So documentation, your processes, the where the things are, where the everything, like you need to document that thing. So knowledge helps with the knowledge sharing as well. The second thing about the vendors, when we talk about like you're using the tools or everything, as a startup,
Mm-hmm.
always negotiate. No matter how big the company is, you'll be surprised that, oh, they're such big company, they will never budge on the pricing. No, they do. They always negotiate. So always negotiate on pricing. You'll be surprised how much cost you can bring it down to. So whatever
Mm-hmm.
the price is on the web, that is generic pricing. But always speak to the account manager, marketing person, or whoever it is. Always ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But in my previous roles, when I've been working for my clients as well, we have been managed to negotiate with the very big names as well. I was never even thought in my dreams that oh, they will come down, reduce their cost massively. So always negotiate with all these tools. As a startup, you need to conserve every bit of pound you can.
Yeah, and I guess those company also knows that once you scale and you start bringing in the big bucks,
Exactly.
it's very hard for people to change platforms because of how
Yes.
ingrained it is as part of the operations of the business. So yes, negotiating is actually great because you're building a relationship with them and they know that they will come back for you. It's a bit like, the banks goes to universities, give you a credit card or a bank card, and they know that people are very unlikely to switch and they have a
Yes.
customer for life. So that this is definitely the same
True.
thing. And again,
Because in the
I
interest,
always, go ahead.
sorry, please, sorry. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna overemphasize the part you mentioned on documentation because this is another non-sexy aspects of building a platform, which I always have to bang the message around until people get it. I'm like, oh, we don't have time. I know, but we're gonna focus the next 2 hours or whatever after on documentation because I think again the point that you've made about that is very, very important. It takes a long time, a lot longer than people assume on how when you onboard the new engineers to how efficient it can be, even if it's the
Yes.
best person. But documentation is one of the way that you can get them a little bit easier, smoother, and having the processes within the company, again, coming from the way you work, also make that process a lot smoother.
Yes. And another aspect is, it goes back to why we are creating. So like Know Your Dosh exists for the financial, for your families, right? So think
Mhm.
about, like your CTO is there. He knows everything about your tech infrastructure. Now, say like things doesn't work out, he find a better opportunity, he leaves you, right?
Yeah.
You don't know which tools you are using, which infrastructure, which credentials. So, right, it's to safeguard, and it's not to safeguard yourself, it's to safeguard your baby, your startup, right? In the interest of startup, it's very important to know that which tools you have been using, where those things are, like where the access are, like credentials are, those things are, right?
Yes.
You need to have it in a secured way. Obviously, you need to save it secure, not in a text document on your desktop. Definitely not. I've
Mhm.
seen so many founders, like storing credentials to their platforms or technical tools on their text
The
document on their
passwords.
desktop. Please don't do that.
Yes.
There are a lot of free tools available you can use for password management as well. Use those,
Mhm.
but have a list with you as well. It's very important. Some like technical person leaves or your CTO leaves, you'll be left
Mm.
for scrambling. Like you will not know, and your whole platform will come to a stall because you don't know what to do. If you want to make a change, you don't have any access. You don't know where to go and what to make a change, right? If somebody new joins
Mhm.
it, you could don't know how to guide them where the things are,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So you
And
need
just
to
to
be
add to
aware of
that
that.
as well, please make sure that even if you're working with external people, you are the
Yes,
one who creates the main accounts. I grit my
absolutely.
teeth whenever I go into a platform, something as simple as, let's say, Confluence or a document management system, as well as the servers and all of those or the other tool that they will use for Figma or whatever they're using. And the top level account is actually the suppliers. It does make
Yes.
sense that if you are outsourcing, that you might never log into your AWS account, but the creation of the account needs to be done with your own email address, or
Yes.
at least someone in the company, or however you want it to be, but you need to own that. And when I work with my clients, what I do is obviously we have a document of know the password where we have all of the tools. I know, and we have something that, like if I kill over, they know who's got the mail access. We know where the password are stored in the password management engine. And I make a point to get, if I can't get my client on the call, because sometimes it gets too technical when we're setting up all the platform at once, but at least I will represent my client on the call, and everything is done, not even with my own business email. It has to be theirs. And I know that whatever happened, they can get access to that. Because I see that a lot where people think, oh, even something as simple as a email address, you get your WordPress website or your Squarespace website done by someone else who probably in marketing, which is amazing, great. But then they have the ownership of your account,
Yes.
which again, nothing bad, they will never delete it, but it's just not good for safety and security
Yes.
and for scaling as well.
That's true. So always create account yourself and then give them the access for their
Yes.
email ID. So you can give them the admin access, that's fine. But at least you have the admin access, that, like tomorrow, if you need an access, you need to show someone you have got the access. So that's a very important point as well. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, Varun. This was such an amazing session, and I'm sure that we can keep on talking for quite a long time. And there's so many great information that's been shared. To anyone listening to this, again, we are going to put a summary on our website, and I will also follow up with Varun to get some of the amazing tools that he's using that can help you, especially when we talked about being data driven. Technology is not just about going out there and code. There's just so many other
Yes.
things that goes into a tech startup. And then yes, we want to make sure that you have those tools as well. So before we go, Varun, how can people find out more about you and try out Know Your Dosh?
So the platform is already live, and it's like www.knowyourdosh.com, and we can leave it in the comments or in your blog
Yeah.
section summary as well. And the best way to reach out to me on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, if you search for Varun Aggarwal Know Your Dosh, you'll see me. Connect me over there. If you've got any questions, you want me to review your tech platform, and yeah, I don't charge. I'll just have a quick briefly overview because I want to help. Because yes, the community has given so much to me. It's my way of giving it back to the community as well. So I believe sharing is more important, because yes, as a startup, everyone is struggling with their own struggles, and anywhere people can help each other in the startup world, it definitely makes a massive difference, right? So definitely reach out to me if you've got any question, or even like a funding, investment, or any chat you want to have. Reach out to me. I'm there.
Brilliant. And thank you very much for your time on the show. And again, I can vouch for that. Varun, you always have goals and and good advice to share to people like myself and people in our network. And I'm sure that they will also watch this episode and still find more goals that they might not have thought about. So,
Yeah,
and
thanks a lot, Nelly.
my pleasure. And to the rest of the audience, do remember that, yes, go find out more about Know Your Dosh. Don't wait until it's too late, because you might not even be here to know that it's too late. And then your family might be left with a financial mess that they might not be able to sort out. Or you might just want a peace of mind to know, how do I make sure that although people don't know exactly what my financial assets is, but they can, and if something happened to me, they will be able to find out about. So please, I highly recommend that you check Know Your Dosh. For everybody else, do remember that we do have a free tech and product mentoring sessions once a month. It's free, and we do bring other amazing guests as well as tech entrepreneurs to be able to help you. So if there's anything that we've discussed here, do check, do even reach out to Varun yourself. And if you do want to jump into one of our sessions, that'd be great. In the meantime, let's design a happy and productive workplace playground together.